Missing someone with all your missing someone
So I was coloring my roots for quite a long time. When I look back, I mean, it was probably 10 years with the Schwarzkopf 6.
Can I see photos of the color that you want?
Well, that's kind of hard. It's whatever you can do, really.
Yeah. You just want to blend it as much as possible.
Yes, because as it grows out more, the demarcation will start to show.
Yeah.
Because it really shows like underneath where you can see where.
Yeah.
So whatever you can do.
Okay.
You're the expert.
So my only concern is that it's pretty solid, this color right here.
Right.
So it's going to take some time for it to come out because the way that I do it, it's going to be more blended. And I'll try to get rid of most of that warmth out, but you're still going to see a little bit after today. But as you
if I
come
have
in,
to come back, that's fine.
yeah, but we'll get most of it out today and
Okay.
you'll feel a lot more blended.
Okay.
And then when you're ready for your next touch-up, like your roots are growing in and you're not feeling like it looks great anymore, then we can touch those pieces up as we do your roots too.
Okay, but that's not going to be like forever. Once it kind of all grows out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because it just turns into my hair.
Yeah. You could even be happy with just what we do today and grow that out. So I'm gonna do that too.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So this week I have a brand new client who found me to do some gray blending for her. She has some old color on her mids and ends that she wants to have blend out with her roots a little bit better. Her ultimate goal is to pretty much just grow out her hair, trying to get gray. So we're gonna try to blend this with my signature technique, and I also want to just share in this video as to why I do this technique over others and why this works for me in particular with my clients. So before I get into that, I wanted to share my technique really quick. I've shared this in all my videos, but if you're new, I will just quickly run through it. I'm using the Danger Jones powder lightener. It has 9+ levels of lift, and I usually will mix this lightener 1 to 2 with developer. I use a mixture of 5 and 20 volume to start off with, and then just use 20 volume for the rest of the head. And so for her technique, I do a foil around the nape of the neck, around the hairline to kind of detail that. I take the back section into a center parting section and can begin my slicing technique. And I alternate and like just do slices in the back and mostly around the whole head except some parts of the hairline, because I find that when doing this technique, slices are just a little bit more effective and get the most amount of impact, especially when you're working from doing a full transformation like this and we need to get rid of a lot of solid color. It just makes it a lot easier next time she comes in for her touch-up if I am avoiding slices rather than weaves. And I am teasing a little bit because I do want to diffuse and kind of leave it slightly bit on the rootier side in the back here. We are trying to focus on more of the mids and ends, so I really want to at the end do a lot of tip outs to try and get rid of a lot of this orange here. But to keep in mind that we want to try and keep some dimension to match her gray pattern because she's not fully white. It is pretty salt and pepper in the back here, so I'm going to be using her natural dark color as those natural like low lights, because I don't particularly love using low lights in these type of transformations unless a client really specifies that they would like a low light. So here I am making sure that my foils are not folded. When doing a transformation like this, I need to make sure that I get a really clean, even lift, especially when there's different tones in the hair and different levels in the hair. I need to make sure that my saturation is on point and just throughout the whole application is nice and even and gets me a really good lift. So today I wanted to share why I like to go all the way to the root. So in the past I have done it both ways. I have done a gray blending technique that is like this, where we're going to be blending to the root even though she has a good amount of virgin root. And I've also done the way of doing it to kind of like where the warmth stops and kind of preserving the natural root. And I just personally prefer to go all the way to the root, because when I'm doing a full transformation like this, especially when I haven't done any highlights or anything in it, I just feel like it blends better and just looks a little bit more put together and more seamless when I go to the root. Now, if she comes in next time for her touch up and she's like, I want to kind of leave my root and just hits the warmth in the mids and ends, then I feel like that's okay and fine. But doing it today, if I were to do that, I feel like it wouldn't blend as well, because I need something that is going to kind of help blend into her natural gray as well. And again, this is just a personal preference. I have done it both ways, and I just feel like it just looks a little bit slightly more polished. And from doing it both ways in the past, I just also feel like clients are a little bit more happier with the results when I go in and do it to the root and have that grow out versus going in and doing the mid. And I'm not saying that going in the mid it doesn't look good. I'm just saying because I go to the root and because there's that line of demarcation from the highlights, I always do a shadow root, and I find that doing a shadow root it just looks better when you do it at the top of the head where the roots begin, versus if you were to kind of blur out that line of demarcation from the mids and ends. Okay, so now I'm headed towards the face frame, and I did a few slices back to back because you can tell from her gray pattern, her natural gray pattern, that it's a little bit more whiter in the front. And I am touching this up only because I want this part to be completely cohesive. So in the future too, I have definitely left these sections out on certain clients if they prefer to have something a little bit lower maintenance. But again, because we're doing a full transformation today, because she has so much warmth on the ends and I just want everything to look super cohesive, that is why I'm highlighting those front pieces. And the reason why I want to do that too is because some of the warmth that's on her mids and ends, since this is my first time doing her hair, I'm not 100% sure that it is going to get to that really clean level 10. Sometimes old permanent color can lift a little bit warmer when it gets to a level 10, so it's just kind of like a security thing for me. I feel like it just looks better when I have everything looking a little bit cohesive, and if I need to alternate or like change up her formula to kind of tone out a little bit more warmth than I expected, then at least I will have those front pieces to kind of match it. Because let's say down the line her hair lifted and some parts of it didn't lift as nice of a white as the rest of it, and I had to tone those pieces out a little bit more violety to tone out the yellow, but then some pieces are like white because I left them out because I didn't highlight them, then that would look, I feel like would look just weirder. And as a hairdresser, you're always kind of trying to plan to kind of touch all the bases and get the best result that you can, even though you might know that there's can be alternative outcomes. And so I find that this is just a safer way for me to approach this type of situation, because I've never done her hair and she has a lot of underlying warmth that I wasn't 100% sure that it was going to lift the way that I wanted it to. So again, if I could have totally left the front hairline, because yes, it was pretty solid as is, but I did it just in case I needed to tone her a little bit ashier, just depending on how light some of the pieces got, so that everything could look more cohesive. Now, if down the line she felt like she wanted to keep her roots and just kind of touch up more of the ends and that warmth, I totally could, because after today's session I had a pretty good idea of how well her hair lifted, and we were able to get her to more of a lighter silvery tone rather than more of like a grayish tone, which was perfect and just worked in her favor. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't lift her hair in the first place. So that's why I always kind of do a full whenever it's a first time client, just to kind of be a little, take precautions just in case I have to tone or go another route to make everything look more cohesive and blended. So since she had that permanent color in her ends, I found that as I was picking through and pulling her foils out, that her root lifted beautifully as expected because it is virgin, but the ends looked a slightly bit more yellowy than the root. So I'm pulling out the foils and then I kind of hold the ends out and just try to rinse the root area that is ready, and then I let the lightener sit on the mids and ends a little bit longer to kind of help lift that and catch that up to the root. And then as her tip outs start to get ready as well too, I pull out the foils and try to just wet the areas that have lightener on it and apply conditioner on those ends, and then try to keep the teased area as dry as possible and try to brush that out all together. And I find that just makes it a lot more gentle and softer on the scalp when brushing out those teases. Okay, so for her toner formulation, I am going to be using a level 6 ash demi-permanent color on the root, and I start in the back taking vertical sections from the top of the head. And when I do a root shadow, I normally will do about 3/4 of an inch to an inch and drag that down just to kind of blur out those lines a little bit and just kind of make everything look a little bit more seamless. So I would say about an inch from the hairline where the money pieces lifted extremely well. So I'm going to be doing the shadow root only behind the hairline to kind of blur out that line of demarcation. Otherwise, I'm just going to be using that lighter toner silver all the way in the front without a shadow root around the hairline. And the way that I apply my silver toners is I'll apply it to the mids first and then kind of just drag it down with my hands to those ends, and it just kind of gives it a more of like a melty feel when I apply this toner to the mid first, because that's where it's going to be processing the most and kind of give the most amount of pigment, and then I'll brush it down and have that pigment drag down to the ends, and that ends will just kind of preserve that brightness and lightness to it. So I've seen people wonder why I like to do more of a violet toner into my silvers, and the reason why I like to mix a little bit more of a purple into my silver toners is because I find that it just lasts a little bit longer and helps cancel out a bit more yellow. I have done more blue base, which is like more of a cooler toner in the past on some clients, and I just find that those fade out extremely fast and they kind of have to leave the purple shampoo in a little bit longer. But I find that when I do more of a silver toner that has like the slightest more hue of violet in it, it just kind of lasts longer and helps cancel out a lot of that yellow. And because she did have a lot of warmth in her hair through those mids and ends, it didn't fully like lift to the most perfect pale yellow platinum like level 10. And so I do want to have something that has a little bit more of punch to it with a little bit more violet, and it's a really light violet too, to kind of help cancel out those warm tones. So before I start curling the hair, I wanted to share this clip of me drying the hair straight, because I feel like when the hair is straight, you can always see all the little imperfections, or, you know, just it shows its true blend. And I feel like through this clip of just me blow drying, I was pretty happy with the way that this blended out. And I feel like doing these slices and then having the tip outs at the end just really pulls the whole blend together. And honestly, I was really happy with the way that this came out, and that I was able to kind of get rid of a lot of that warmth on the mids and ends. In the consultation, I did tell her that it would take a couple sessions to get out, and honestly, there is still a little bit in her hair, like some of the warmth, but I feel like majority of it is gone, and I feel like those parts kind of overpower the warmth in a way. So she was really happy with the way that it blended out, and that she didn't see much of that old color in it as well either.
Very pretty.
How does the cut and everything feel?
Oh yeah, it looks really good. I'm sure it'll be a lot
How does it
healthier.
feel?
Feels good.
Alrighty guys, so here is the final product. You can see that everything looks 100% more blended. I mean, you can still see slight bits of that old color in her hair, but that was honestly expected because of how solid that old coppery tone on those mids and ends were. She could definitely come back in and we can try to get rid of a lot of that leftover warmth in her hair, but honestly I feel like this is gonna grow out really soft and beautiful against her natural gray pattern, and she might not even come in, and she just might feel like this would be enough to have her grow out everything else. Alrighty guys, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in, and as always I will talk to you guys next week.